Yes, hot topic for content creators. This is where I either pitch a topic, a hot topic for you guys to either create some content about or leave some comments about. And there's no time limit on this. So you can revisit those hot topics at any point in time if you are looking for ideas to create some videos about or some talking points, or just join the discussion and share your 2 cents, and I will address your comments live during the show. My first hot topic dealt with artificial intelligence and art. D.A. Bell is back at it again, throwing his hat in the ring on this topic. He says, AI art is heartless to me. It doesn't have that feeling of passion once you get past how pretty it is. The goal of art of any kind is to make you feel something. AI lacks that human touch, which it will never have. It goes on to say at the bottom, the only thing writing AI has going is the humorous sentences. I've addressed that before, where it's basically like these bots that like these bots that will like scrape articles, like they'll scour the internet and like scrape articles and stuff like that, and basically like rearrange the words to make it so it seems like it's like a fresh and unique article, but it's like it's still packed full of like keywords and crap like that. It's basically just like junk articles, and it's like black hat. It's basically like a black hat method of like of doing like SEO. It's stupid is what it is. Now, the thing about it on the visual aspect, where I was more focused on the visual aspect, writing is a little bit easier to pick apart. You can kind of tell when an AI is when a piece of literature is put together or generated by AI. It's a little bit easier to tell. I guess it depends, but I'm talking about visual art specifically on this particular one, where he says art is heartless to me. I mean, it's subjective. That's the thing. Like with the visual art, I've seen some of the visual art that's been coming out from like, say, the Midjourney app, the DALL-E app, and not all of it is crap. If I'm to be honest, like visually, the aesthetics of some of the stuff that's being generated by the AI is pleasing to the eye. But the question is more of a philosophical one in nature, where it's like, is it really art though? Can you consider it art? My follow-up question to that was, what does it mean to separate the art from the artist? And can a piece of work become too far removed in this sense? And that could even be argued for so-called artists and their methods to the mayhem, if you will, their methodology for creating quote unquote art. Like, what does it mean for a piece to be considered art? Because there are a lot of tools, because someone had mentioned before that AI is just simply a tool, like a pencil or a paintbrush is a tool. I argue that that's a little bit of a stretch as far as that goes, because really when it comes down to the DALL-E app or something, really all it is like a little search bar that you're typing in information and you're describing what you want the app to create, and then the app will then interpret your language that you put in and then generate a piece of quote unquote art. It'll generate an image, really, based on the text prompts that you provide it. Now, that doesn't make you, I would argue, that doesn't make you an artist in any shape, fashion, or form. If anything, what you would be is a glorified customer who is commissioning for a piece of art. But is what the AI provides you an actual piece of art, or is it something else? And I would argue that it is something else. It's something completely different. It's in a category of its own. It's in that weird, uncanny valley section of this new age man and machine meets technology. There is that where you're saying the art is heartless. It's like it's missing something. It's missing soul, if you will. Like it comes from the knowledge of where the piece came from. Thank you for the comment, DA. Appreciate it. It's like it's missing something. What it does is now, like it begs the question: does art imitate life, or does life imitate art? Well, no matter how you slice it, when you start getting into the realm of artificial intelligence, and it's just the AI is basically just repurposing and reimagining just a bunch of data sets that are already available to it through the internet. Well, now you're no longer creating the human experience. The human experience element is missing in that because it's only an imitation of the human experience. In other words, it's not created by a human hand. It's not created through the human imagination. It's a byproduct of the human imagination. So it's like a simulacra, if you will, where it doesn't really capture that human experience. It doesn't have that soul, the soul element to it. Now, I know that might be difficult for people who are more atheistic to understand what I mean by that, or people that don't have a certain degree of spirituality. They don't believe in, they never really delved into the concept of metaphysics and what, and all the different rabbit holes that entails the human existence, the human experience, and our existence. So you might just look at it and be like, oh, that's a pretty picture. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't argue that standpoint. I would say, yeah, these AI apps are capable of creating pretty looking pictures. But does that make it art? Does that give it artistic merit? Does it give it value? And I would say, that's where the argument lies. Is there value in that? What I see, it's going to be based on knowledge. So I'm someone who is a strong proponent for separating the art from the artist. And what I mean by that is I don't care who the artist is so much as a person in order for me to appreciate a piece of work for what it is and give credit where I think credit is due. I've since, with this artificial intelligence stuff, I've kind of taken another look at that. And I do think that does play a role in moving forward in my ability to really appreciate something and consider it a work of art. Basically a prerequisite for that is I'm going to have to know where that work came from. It's not to necessarily say you're going to have to show me the work. In other words, step by step process of how you created that work, but to at least know that where the work came from, that it came from an actual human being and they created it through their own imagination in some shape, fashion, or form. Regardless of their methods, they at least know that the work itself came from a human being's imagination and wasn't some AI generated content. Like I said before, which is easier said than done when we're dealing with literature, because you can break down syntax, you can look at different types of literary techniques being used, the pacing. There's a lot of things you can break down a piece of literature and kind of tell if it was written by a human being or if it was, an AI autocorrect type of deal. Not so much with visual art, though, because visual art can be very surreal. It's hard to tell sometimes, especially with the type of filters and stuff like that that are available today. You can make digital art look like it was a painting. You can make digital art look like it was a drawing. Someone drew it by hand or something like that. So it can be very dicey when it comes to that. So I think accreditation is important when in the realm of whether or not you're going to consider something a piece of art and give it, and whether or not it has artistic merit, and therefore determine the value of said piece. Because the reason why I bring that up, as I've mentioned before, is one thing is pre-made book covers. So there are people who are in the business of selling pre-made book covers, which is nothing wrong with that. If you are a digital artist, I think that there's a market for that. I think there are plenty of indie authors out there that would like to, they may not have the funds to commission a unique piece of artwork from an artist. There are some artists out there that are boasting big numbers per piece. They're getting paid 4 to 5 figures per piece of just doing a cover work, and that's pretty impressive. That's it. That tells me that there is a lot of money in this market. Now, the thing is, not a lot of indie writers or authors out there may have those kind of funds. So an alternative to that is there are people out there that, in their spare time, what they're doing, these digital artists out there, they are creating these pre-made book covers just as kind of like a hobby, really. And they're posting them on a website, and you can buy exclusive rights to these pre-made book covers. And of course, you can have your title put in there, you put your name in there, but it's the digital work itself. And you get a license for that digital work, which is, it's a cool idea. And it's not necessarily a new idea, because there's been licensing for like photos and stuff like that and digital art for a while. But just digital book covers specifically is fairly new to the scene. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because of how that ties in with this artificial intelligence stuff. And I'm under the impression that it's possible, you just know the human condition and understand how human beings can be from time to time. And how would you feel as, an author, a self-pub author, shelling out, over $100 or something like that for a pre-made digital art, that only to later find out that the person you purchased it from basically whipped it up within a matter of seconds because they typed in a prompt on an AI art generator, and then turned around and packaged it as their own original artwork and sold it to you at a nice hefty 3-figure price. Maybe not necessarily the 4 or 5 figures that boast, the big name, well-known artists, but still a hefty sum for those of you who run a tight ship when it comes to your budget. Ethics, I would say that ethics certainly come into play. And I think that I don't necessarily have a problem with it so long as people are kind of being transparent with the method by which they are in which they create their art, their craft. Yeah, some of them are pretty pricey, for sure. But that's a good thing, though. I don't say that as like it's a negative thing. Like, that's a good thing, because what that tells me is that there's money in the market. There's money out there to be had. So it's just a matter of getting your game tight, stepping your game up, and just putting yourself out there, and the money will come eventually if you stick to your craft. At least that's how I look at it. But if you you got to be passionate about it. It can't just be about you're doing it for the money. I think I personally, like, I enjoy graphic design. Like, graphic design for me is a little bit of a hobby. It's a side hobby. It's not really like my main thing, but from time to time, like, I get enjoyment from, I don't have Photoshop. I use different apps, but it's similar to Photoshop where I can use like layering. I can do like layering and editing and stuff like that. And I think that graphic design is an art form in and of itself. It does require, in other words, it does require a certain skill set to know how to, because there's like different techniques and stuff like that, like blending and even like the use of like filters and stuff like that, knowing when to use filters, how to apply filters, and there's like all these different skill sets that come along with Photoshop that I believe that graphic design, even though it's something of a different category. So you have there's illustration, you have illustration. So like people who like to do like traditional, like hand drawn type of illustrations, that's an art form. But then graphic design is an art form. I do consider that an art form, but it's in a different category. Kind of like, how you'd say like, oh, well, doing sculptures or pottery, that's an art form, but it's in a different category. But yeah, this whole AI thing, yeah, that I would not consider that. I don't consider that art as much as it's a simulation of art. The topic continues. You guys let me know if you come up with some more angles on this, or if I've said anything to stimulate some thought and spark your own imagination. Go ahead. You can make a video. If you want to make a video on this topic, if you want to leave it, somewhere around 10 minutes, that'd be great. But regardless, if you tag me in the video, or just share the link with me, I may feature that video during a future live stream, and I'll add some commentary. I'll feature the video, I'll watch it live, and add some commentary as I watch the video, and give your channel, if it's on YouTube, I can give your channel a plug that way.